And now, let's talk about idealism. Idealism, in philosophy, is any view that stresses the central role of the ideal or the spiritual in the interpretation of experience. It may hold that the world or reality exists essentially as spirit or consciousness, that abstractions and laws are more fundamental in reality than sensory things, or at least that whatever exists is known in dimensions that are chiefly mental through and as ideas. There are two basic forms of idealism, namely metaphysical idealism and epistemological idealism. Metaphysical idealism is the one that asserts the ideality or reality. It is directly opposed to materialism, the view that the basic substance of the world is matter and that it is known primarily through and as material forms and processes. While epistemological idealism is the one that holds that in the knowledge process, the mind can grasp only the psychic or what's its object are conditioned by their perceptibility. It is opposed to realism, which holds that in human knowledge, objects are grasped and seen as they really are, in their existence outside and independently of the mind. And now, let's talk about idealism as a philosophy of education. The word idealism is derived from two distinct sources, the idea and the ideal. Idea means true and testified knowledge. The word ideal stands for the perfected form of an idea or ideas. An idealist does not have considerations for material values of life. A thinker who idolizes mind and self is an idealist. And idealism is one of the oldest schools of philosophy. Idealism can be categorized into three main sections: the classical, modern, and religious idealism. Classical idealism refers to the set of theories put forward by Socrates and Plato in their search for an absolute truth. Socrates and Plato questioned the fundamentals of reality, knowledge, and human nature. From these teachings emerged the Socratic method, the process of gaining knowledge by carefully questioning and then criticizing the answers. Socrates believed that all humanity possessed and was capable of such knowledge. Plato believed his ideas, referred to as forms, were all connected and arranged as a hierarchy, with the greatest of all forms being the forms of good. He believed that the most knowledgeable would reach ultimate truth. Moreover, in religious idealism, theorizes that there are two separate worlds, the worlds of God and humanity. Saint Augustine was a religious idealist who speculated that God created knowledge and that we must uncover this unchanging truth. Throughout the history of the United States, the religious idealism of Christianity has been the most influential on education, although idealism from other religions is a strong part of education worldwide. And lastly, modern idealism. Modern idealism is hypothesized by both René Descartes and George Berkeley. Modern idealists also believed in two worlds, a material world and a world of the mind. Modern idealists questioned existence, God, and perception, most famously in Descartes' declaration, I think, therefore I am. Modern idealist educators consider their students to be rational, thinking beings who are capable of seeking and understanding the truth. There are six fundamental principles of idealism. The first one is the two forms of the whole world. Idealism believes in two forms of the world: spiritual world and material world. Idealist gives more importance to spiritual world in comparison to the material world. They believe that spiritual world is real and the ultimate truth, whereas the material world is transitory and moral. According to Horn, idealism holds that the order of the world is due to the manifestation in space and time of an eternal and spiritual reality. The second is ideas are more important than object. According to idealists, knowledge of mind and soul can be obtained through ideas only. Hence, they have given more importance to ideas over the objects and material or later. In the words of Plato, ideas are of the ultimate cosmic significance. They are rather the essences or archetypes which give forms to cosmos. These ideas are eternal and unchanging. And the third fundamental principles of idealism is the importance of man over nature. To idealists, man is more important than material nature. It is because man can think and experience about material objects and material phenomena. Hence, the thinker of the one who experiences is more important than the object or the phenomena experienced. Man is endowed with intelligence and the sense of discrimination. Thus, he is not a slave of the environment as animals are, but molds and transforms the environment for his own good and welfare of the society. In short, he creates his own world of virtue, and his creativity achieves higher and higher levels of art in many areas. The fourth is faith in spiritual values. According to idealists, prime aim of life is to achieve spiritual values, truth, beauty, and goodness. These spiritual values are undying and permanent. The realization of these values is the realization of God. In the pursuit of these absolute values, man rises higher and higher in the moral plane till he attains divinity. For the achievement of these spiritual values, all the capacities of man are to be harnessed to the full. These capacities are knowing, feeling, and willing. The fifth is the importance of personality development. Idealists give much importance to the self of the individual. Hence, they insist upon the fullest development of the personality of an individual. According to them, the development of personality means achievement of perfection. Plato rightly speaks that each individual has an ideal self. He tries to develop that ideal self more and more. The self-realization is the true sense of the term. It may be noted that self-realization means knowledge of the self or soul. The sixth and the last fundamental principle is full support to the principle of unity in diversity. Idealists give full support to the principle of unity in diversity. They believe that it is of spiritual nature. They may be called universal consciousness or divinity. This underlying divine force maintains the existence and working of all entities. Idealists call this power as God, the supreme force, which is omnipotent and omnipresent. Idealism and aims of education. Idealism prescribes certain fundamental aims of education which are directly influenced by the aims and principles of life. Some of the important aims of education is laid down by idealists given below. First is self-realization. According to idealism, man is the most beautiful creation of God, his grandest work. It lays great stress in the exaltation of human personality. It is self-realization. The aim of education is to help the self of the individuals higher till self-realization is achieved. It is, in fact, making actual or real the highest potentialities of the self. Second is universal education. According to idealism, education should be universal in nature. The universe is regarded as a thought process. Education should be based on the teaching of the universal truth from the standpoint of reality of the universe. And the third is spiritual development. Idealists give greater importance to spiritual values in comparison with material attainments. The fifth is cultivation of moral values. According to idealism, man is essentially a moral being. Therefore, moral, intellectual, and aesthetic aspects of his personality should be promoted. Sixth is preparation for a holy life. Idealism prepares an individual for a holy life. Froebel says that the object of education is the realization of a faithful, pure, inviolable, and hence holy life. And the seventh and the last aim of idealism in education is the development of intelligence and rationality. Idealism wishes that education should develop the mind fully. It makes a person rational as well. Only the high developed mind can understand the pervading force. The idealists believe that education must help in the full evolution of mind, the emancipation of spirit, self-realization, and of higher values of life, and to train the whole man completely and fully for manhood and not some part of man. The proponents of idealism is George Berkeley and Immanuel Kant.